You ready to go? Well, welcome to County Before Country. This is the Backstage VIP Pass with the one and only John Moody.
Hey, Aaron.
John, it's good to have you with us. Now, last night you had to go after Doug Wilson, but you give this speech, and there were a lot of like, wow, he just went there. So I guess give us just a little bit of gist. What was the inspiration for the talking points? What got you going for this year's conference?
Well, when I was thinking about the conference, I mainly kept thinking about the book of Nehemiah.
Yeah.
And then over the past couple months, in some of our circles, I see so many men spending so much time and energy, basically doing cosplay Christianity online.
Yeah.
They're fighting people who are no actual threat to them. And it's so effeminate. It just drives me nuts. I'm like, go protest Gender Queer Hour in your local library. Like, go fight somebody who's actually a threat to you.
Right.
Why are you Baptists picking on the Presbyterians again? Dude, I went to seminary. I wasn't just a typical seminary student. I was the student you hated because I ruined the curve in your seminary class. And
It probably actually was my seminary class, John.
Yeah. Or I was your Garrett fellow. I'm the one who actually graded your papers and gave you the bad grade.
Right.
Because you're an idiot. And I see guys on social media. Let's debate baptism again. Let's debate the right understanding of the regulative principle again. Let's debate beard length. I'm like, dudes, like the brightest minds in Christianity have debated some of these issues for centuries. And these are men who are smarter, sharper, more well-read than you will ever be. But you social media man, you will finally settle the baptism debate. I'm just like, come on, guys.
John, you actually went there. And I didn't know if a lot of people thought you would, but we heard Fight, Laugh, Feast, Baptist and Transgenderism from your talk. It's in a way, though, Hard Men Podcast, come on. I was like, it's kind of refreshing, though, because it needed to be said, that's not the fight. Mm-hmm. So if you say to those guys, hey, that's not the fight, we're here, we're talking about localism, what is the fight? What were you calling guys to be engaged in actually doing?
Yeah, first and foremost, in actually being men.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys, I think the reason they love internet cosplay Christianity is that means I don't have to play Chutes and Ladder with my kids again. That means I don't have to read To Give a Mouse a Cookie for the 472nd time. It's a way they can say to themselves, I'm doing something important when they're not. It lets them cover up the lack of real manliness and taking ownership and dominion in their real world by saying, well, I'm doing important theological work online.
I got in a debate on Fight, Laugh, Feast. I owned them. You didn't actually do anything.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I mean,
yeah, it's like, who did you, like when guys debate baptism for the 1000th time on social, who actually benefits? What new insight are you going to offer the church that has not already appeared in 200 books over the past 400 years?
Yeah.
I'm just like, come on, guys. Like, why don't you fight with people who are a true threat to you and your family and your county and your country's future? Why are you hiding out in all of these different places instead of actually engaging with real people in the real world? I think it's because a lot of guys in our circles are a bit effeminate, and they will discover very quickly how much fear of man they really have.
Yeah.
It's a totally different ball game to stand across from a flesh and blood person in real life who is cross-dressing their son as a girl and say to them, dude, I've known you for 2 decades. What the heck are you thinking?
Yeah.
This is a boy. I have a friend, I'm going to have to face him face to face and say to him, are you really going to chop off your son's genitals?
Right.
Like, that's hard.
Yeah.
Like, thinking about, me picking on Presbyterians online, none of you are a threat to me. So it's this effeminate cosplay Christianity where our country is burning, and instead we're, debating these, I don't want to say they're dumb issues. Baptism is an important issue. But the reason I love the CREC is they understand we just may not sort this out.
Still brothers. We can work together.
Yeah.
Let's not just focus on that one issue.
Yeah, and it's just like, brilliant men could not settle this debate. It's highly unlikely any of us are going to make meaningful progress. On occasion, after you have built walls, worked hard, if we were hanging out in Utah one night, maybe we'd kick back, throw around baptism a little bit. But that's after we've loved our wives, built our households, started productive business. There's all these things the Bible says are far more important. And so many men in our circles seem to measure themselves by the minutia.
Yeah. Yeah, or even, you think about any type of public, platform. I'm sure you've seen this as well. People probably don't realize, 99% of my day and my life is doing the boring, beautiful stuff of everyday life. Loving my wife and children, all that sort of stuff. It's also interesting, John, because you kind of bring to the table at a conference like this the foodie culture, which I've experienced as well, but I would say they're very different. So you've got your Go Rogue shirt on. One of the things that I found was Joel Salatin culture, foodie culture, they're really engaged locally already. So the things that, a lot of Reform Camp is we need to invent how to get it, active local now. You guys are saying, we've been doing this.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
for a long time. My question is, why did foodieism pick up this grassroots localism so much earlier, whereas Christians, which seemed like would have, but why didn't they?
Well, when you look at the history, conservatism... this is something, let's go back to the 60s, the 50s. There was a split theologically in the 50s and 60s that really then became apparent in the 70s and 80s, where being locally rooted and being theologically rooted were sliced asunder.
Yeah.
So where Christianity became about a dominion theology that was almost in competition with the earth instead of cooperation with the earth. And the type of economics a lot of Christians embraced were antithetical to caring about anything local in your vicinity. Because, Christians are capitalists, and capitalism became synonymous with global capitalism.
And a lot of, max profit, no matter what the cost, that sort of thinking.
Why would I pay 4 cents more for sneakers from the local shoe store ran by the guy in my community who may even be a member of my church when I can get it for that many cents cheaper over here, John? And you saw this. I'm going to name drop 2 more guys, but you still see this level of nonsense in Cody Leibolt and Jacob Brunton.
Yeah.
Where we have elevated economics. We have made economic concerns the litmus test of morality.
Specifically, Ayn Randian.
Yeah.
That whole bag. And I think even Adam Smith and things like the hidden hand of capitalism, I would say, there doesn't need to be a hidden hand. There needs to be a Christian moral conscience.
Yeah.
That needs to guide the way that and that would include things like, why would I not buy from a kid who made 2 cents a day in Taiwan versus my neighbor?
Yeah.
That might actually be loving my neighbor.
Yeah, I've just never understood because, Paul says, do not worry about your own interests only, but consider the interests of others more highly than yourself.
Yeah.
And so when I go to spend money, I have interest in spending money. I want to get a good product. I want to get it at a fair price. But Paul compels me to think about the person on the other side of that transaction. well, are they being paid fairly? Is this a win for them as well as a win for you? And is it a win for your broader community? And so Salatin and the local foodie people realized that the industrial food system was lose, 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 and then a very narrow range of winners. And like, well, we want a system where as many partakers in what's happening walk away winning.
Well, don't you think, too, like, I know you've been involved with raw milk and stuff like that. Don't you think part of it is, and maybe this is one thing we hope to see come out of a conference like this, but to actually see people having a game plan, you can walk away and actually do something and not just complain about them? Because I think that's also part of, like, conservative Christianity has been, we're really good at complaining, but when it comes down to, like, well, start a food co-op or figure out how to do it, people are like, no, that's too hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I don't know if I mentioned it last night, I said on Facebook, like, conservative in America is marked by whiners over winners. It's, you think about elite evangelical leadership, you think about elite conservative political leadership, they get up there and they will wail, we just gave $50 billion to you. And, it's this constant whine fest.
A lot of saber rattling.
Yeah. Wooden swords on cardboard shields that they can't cut anybody with. And that's why the left doesn't really actually care. They pretend there's a conservative resistance while knowing that there isn't.
Right.
So, because conservatives don't carry weapons that they can actually hurt people with anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
And this is why so many conservatives hate somebody like Ron DeSantis.
Yeah.
Because DeSantis will actually wield the sword, because the government is a weapon. If Paul says the government wields the sword, that means the government is a weapon. And so whoever controls government controls the weapons. And DeSantis is willing to swing the sword.
Yeah, and that's frightful for, I think, a lot of people on both sides of the aisle, actually.
Well, yeah, because, again, most Republicans, they want to pretend that there is no sword, which means the sword is only wielded by the left.
Yeah, that's right.
Which means you get transgender queer hour in your local library.
That's a blessing of liberty? Is that...
Yeah.
So, John, I want to ask you, last thing I want to ask you today is, you were talking about Samwise.
Uh-huh.
First of all, probably one of the best friends examples in all of literature that, like, I put this out on Twitter before. It said that, how do you find a better friend, loyalty, all that, than Samwise? And people are like, yeah, I don't think there is one. But walk me through what you said. You said all of us want to be Aragorn.
Yeah, all of us want to be Aragorn or Gandalf. Some of us want to be Legolas.
Maybe Gimli.
Yeah. Some
heavy
people want
set.
to be Gimli. Yeah, if you're a chubby dude, you're like, I could be a Gimli.
I got a long beard.
Or a Faramir.
Oh.
All of us want to be main characters.
But we're Samwise.
But it's true. Like if you look at how Tolkien structures his writing and why he included Sam, because Sam is who you actually can be.
Not even necessarily Frodo.
Yeah. Well, because again, Frodo,
he's chosen.
Exactly. Like this is what I said in my one post. Not very few of us are ever going to be noble birthed, great warriors, given very clear special tasks from God and providence. But every one of us can be faithful in the opportunities and duties God has given us. And one reason I think Tolkien made Sam a gardener, because that was Adam's original.
Interesting.
Tolkien's books, he always said that the goal of good Christian fiction is to indirectly point to unalterable truths about the universe and not beat your audience over the head with them. So Tolkien's like...
Subtlety.
Yeah. And one of the subtle things is, like, Samwise is Adam. He's just a plain old gardener who has to defeat evil in his time, but using only the tools that he as an average person has provided. And what are the tools average people have? Samwise can't fight an army of orcs. Samwise can't stand up to a Balrog. No, Samwise can be a faithful friend and help make sure that Frodo succeeds in a task that the narrative shows Frodo actually fails.
Yeah.
A lot of people miss that. Like, Frodo, and one reason I think Tolkien made Frodo fail is a reminder that none of us are actually up to the task in and of ourselves to stop evil. Even the greatest of us.
You need a fellowship. You need friends.
Yeah.
Frodo could not have done that alone. But even, in the movie, there's this scene where Frodo's trying to leave on his own. He's like, I have to do this by myself. And Sam's like, I know you do. And he goes with him. And I'm coming with you. Yeah, it's just great. John, as we leave here, what do you think the takeaway for people should be? Obviously, read Lord of the Rings, think on Sam, be faithful in the ordinary. I guess, what do you hope a conference like this accomplishes?
I hope it will help people realize that there are opportunities locally to make a tremendous difference in our country and in our culture by faithfully working county by county, region by region, to rebuild the walls and serve real living people and focus on real local problems where you can actually make a difference.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure, John.
Dude, it's so good to see you in person.
I was enjoying watching you give your fiery speech. It was like 200 degrees in here last night when you got to speak.
Oh, man, the worst part was I'd look down at my notes, and I couldn't see them anymore.
Is it the perspiration?
Sweat. Yeah, because I had sweat, so I'd look down.
I just assumed you were crying because you were so moved.
No, and all I see is like the notes are like looking through a piece of broken glass because it's just, dude, it was so hot.
It was so hot. Well, awesome, John. I appreciate it, brother.
And I appreciate everything you, and again, you all with Hard Men, with King's Hall, doing such great work and really focusing on the right types of it. So you all have been a blessing to my family. I have my sons listen to your stuff.
That's awesome.
So it's great what you're doing.
Awesome. Appreciate it, John. Can I hit this? Oh.